Okay, relatives, I'm going to say good afternoon. Chokaya Washde Matakyapi. I'm going to do a reading today. I'm on the road. I know that it's not recommended to just safety issues, and that's definitely valid, but I feel pretty safe, so I'm going to go ahead and do a reading. I want to welcome everybody Taya Yahipi to this reading for January 18th. But these are the type of readings that apply to any day, so feel free. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's where I'm coming from. These readings apply towards any day. I have no idea what the reading is going to say, relatives, just so you know. So if you're watching from Facebook, just to let you know, if you're watching from YouTube, that these are unedited, these are raw, these are uncut. So I just want to be vulnerable. I want to be exposed to the elements. I trust that whatever is going to come out of this reading today is going to be okay. Even if I sometimes put my foot in my mouth or regret something that I say, I just want to be able to have an opportunity to be human, be me, expand my vision or expand my idea, my preconceived, socialized belief on what it is to be, to exist, everything sort of under the sun. But I don't want to get too far into that. I do want to get to the reading. So here's today's reading. And also, this says Elders Meditation with the Native American Elders. Okay, this comes from Native American Elders, but this applies to everyone. I'm just letting you know that, because if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't be doing them. I am from the Ihahangtawan Nation, the Ihangtawan Oyate, the Yankton Sioux people. I live here in South Dakota. Please feel free to share, like my page, and support, you know, whatever that means. So, I'll just go ahead and get to the reading for January 18th. Excuse me. Silence is the absolute poise or balance of body, mind, and spirit. Be still and know. All new learnings, all ideas about new things, creativity, daydreaming, and mental effectiveness come to those who learn about silence. All warriors know about the power of silence. All elders know about stillness. Be still and know God. Meditation is about the place of silence. This is the place to hear God's voice. We can find tremendous amounts of knowledge in the place of silence. This is the sacred place of God. And then there's a brief prayer at the bottom. It says, Great Spirit, teach me the power of silence. All right, good one. Excellent one to think about. Excellent one to take time out throughout your day, during your day, and to have that be in your life. For me, I live alone. I'm kind of a loner. I can give you many examples about how silence has been both good and bad in everything, absolutely everything, from in all of creation, from the beginning of creation, according to our traditional stories. There is good in them, and then there is bad in them. And the reason I say that is because this reading talks about all the benefits of silence. And I agree with that, no doubt about it. Definitely, without a doubt. But also there is also a negative side of silence. And I'm going to try and cover that according to my own experiences, relatives. Okay? This is my own experience. growing up, silence kept me restrained, kept me trapped. I didn't know about these type of teachings growing up. Okay, I didn't grow up around spirituality. I didn't grow up around healthy parenting, healthy kinship systems, healthy values. I just didn't grow up around that. Fact, okay? Fact. Not blaming. There's a real reason for that. Okay? Not blaming anybody. I'm not pinning that on anybody, but there are reasons for that, and I'm not going to go into those reasons for the sake of time. But there was a lot of suffering going on within the home, within here. And the only way that, and throughout the community, okay, there was a lot of suffering. There was a lot of messages as far as who it was to be, how it was to be, how I was going to exist according to the rules that were set in small town South Dakota. Okay, there's a set of rules, there's a set of laws, there's a set of standards. And if you look at your own community, you might understand, or you might be able to sort of, take a look at that. And at that time, within the family system, and even when you went to school, and I'll give this example, perfect example. Back then, now today we talk about mental health. We talk about it because we know that talking about it is bringing strength to help people, is a crucial ingredient to helping people, because not only are the people that are affected by mental health concerns or illness, however you want to put it, but also the families. So basically everybody in the communities. And according to our Teoshpaye system, that everybody, when one person is suffering, everybody is suffering. When one person is happy, everybody is happy. There is that interconnectedness. Okay? In some way, shape, or form, we are affected. And back then, when you spoke in terms of mental health, it hadn't progressed the way that it has today. The progressive thinking at that time was what was making people even more sick. You ignore it, you don't talk about it. That was sort of the damage that silence can bring. Again, there's good and bad in everything, in everybody, in every creation, in all of creation, in every single thing that has ever existed is the energy, is the system, is the beliefs, the language. Everything is either good or bad, both. Okay, so at that time, when you thought about mental health, you thought of straitjackets. You thought of somebody being led away, screaming, and everybody's embarrassed. That person is out of control. That person is delusional. That person is a problem. And people are embarrassed. Those people that are impacted are embarrassed. They're ashamed. And so that type of vision that was created by the standard of the mainstream created silence. And that silence created more suffering. And we found that out. We found that out that we can't do that no more. And now today, and I really look forward to a time when because now we're going with a new energy. We're going into a new direction. And I'm excited about that because I know more people are going to be helped. Because because that's just what's happening, and there is no going back. And so that is sort of the detriment of that that is a result of silence. But on the positive note, for myself personally, is I know that now. I'm able to make that connection. I'm able to understand that. I'm able to put two and two together and say there is a positive to the silence that I experience, and that there is a negative to the silence that I experience. Now, as a youngster growing up, again, the rules of the household were very damaging to who I was as a child and who I was as a person, and also who I would eventually be. And that was as a result of what was happening in the home. And the only way that I could, and the rules of the home, and the rules at school, the rules wherever I went, I didn't know how to disassociate myself to new rules, to basically fight against the assault upon my self-esteem, the assault on my self-image. I was just a child. I didn't know, and the teachings weren't there. So these teachings that we're talking about today are medicine. They are going to help us. They are going to help raise from silence into discussion, and then back into silence, and then to discussion. And so that has been the pattern, the new set of laws that exist in my world, in my experience. I had to break free. I had to break free, but just as important, I had to gain an understanding of what I was breaking free from. What is it that is keeping me with this feeling that there is more to life than this? What is it that is keeping me in that cycle of thought and behavior that says that there is more to life than what is happening, but there's nothing that I can do about it? And part of that was as a result of that silence, because the very loud conversation at that time was, we don't like you, son. We don't like you, sir. We don't like you, young man. We don't know you, but we do not like you. We don't like your mom. We don't like your grandpa. We don't like your auntie. We don't like your uncle. We don't like your brother. We don't like your sister, because you don't look like us. You don't sound like us. You're darker than us. Relatives, I might look pale now, but in summertime, there's a complete change. So it was, even within my lifetime, it was illegal to be who I was. It was illegal to exist as a Native American in America. In 1978, the Freedom of Religious Act kicked in. And then it became that we became legally legally, we could practice being Native American without the threat of being imprisoned, without the threat of being lawfully arrested. But that was on the legal front. On the social front, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Man, it was hard, because the volume was always turned up. And I was always having to sort of be hostage to other people's opinion of me. And since the overall conversation and the overall message was, it's negative, it's anybody that looks like you, sounds like you, we want you to be hostage to how we think about you. And the message was very clear. Woo! And in a lot of ways it still is, relatives. I'll speak very truthfully to that. And so the reason why I say that was because that type of overwhelming message, excuse me, within the social structures, societal patterns, being at the mercy and at the hostage of the moods of every person wherever I went, depending on what mood they were in, I was hostage. And so silence was also a good and also a very negative thing. Because as a young child, since I didn't have any defense against that type of standard, I couldn't fight back. I mean, I was a tough kid, man. I was getting in fights. I learned how to use these to fight back, but that got me in a lot of trouble too. How I was feeling on the inside was speaking volumes in my behavior. I was getting into a lot of trouble for which most of I wasn't getting caught for. But when I did get caught, it was very humiliating. They didn't know how to treat people the way that they know how to treat people now. We've progressed. We got a long ways to go. And so the silence that I was experiencing at that time was definitely what they were talking about, is you need to go off and be alone because you need to escape. And I told you my experience about what I was escaping from. That was really important, to find a safe place to start to have that conversation about what it was that I was escaping from and why I felt like I needed to escape, and that impact on me, on that escapism, and the silence that went on at that time, because I didn't have any defense against that. It just seemed like the volume even got turned up even more. So my self-esteem, my self-image, my vision towards myself had been created not by the through the eyes of God, Wakantanka, Tukashila, that interconnectedness and the spirituality, but by the cruelty of my neighbors, of my schoolmates. And even though that wasn't always the case, because I gained some popularity by being good in sports. I was a relatively handsome young man, so girls liked me, but I could never see myself as valuable. And so the silence that I escaped into, away from that aggression, was that same message. And man, I tried. I wish that I could. I would look at TV, I would look at other people, and I would say, okay, well then I'm going to be like that, because That's what is popular. That is what is receiving positive messages. That is what it's like to seek approval. And I didn't like the person, no matter what, I did not like the person looking back at me in the mirror. I couldn't see. I had been blinded by the assaults, the verbal assaults, the physical assaults, the assaults that were always happening. Again, hostage to the moods of other people. Depending on what mood other people were going to dictate how I was to be treated. I was as a youngster. And so the silence at that time was just, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I couldn't escape. Those kind of messages I had started to take on those things that were being told to me, that were being whitewashed, that were being brainwashed, had now become a part of my own language. I started to believe those, and I started to say those things within myself. I became my I became my own worst enemy. So nobody even needed to say those things. And though that would continue, I really started to rebel. I really started to go into a place of hate, self-hate, suicidal, homicidal. Certainly, I was acting out in such a way that if people would have known, they would have said there's something very concerning about what's happening with this young man. But again, silence was the standard. You don't talk. And it was not only the family standard, it was my own individual standard now. It was also the standard and the rules that were set wherever I went. Because again, that's the way things were when we were young. And so I walked around saying, no, I'm fine. Was I fine? Oh, hell no, I wasn't fine. Are you kidding me? In fact, it got to such a point that when I was fine, I could never feel fine. So when I was comfortable, it felt like something was wrong. And I settled into this pattern of comfort zone of cruelty. When something was going on that was cruel, then I felt more comfortable. Then I knew that this was my place. And that pattern, though I wanted to escape and did my best to escape through alcohol, through drugs, through violence, through the list goes on and on and on. We were poor, so I couldn't escape into materialism. I was shy, so I couldn't escape into have a relationship with a girl or a woman. I couldn't do that. I was just too shy. That language was just there, what was imprinted. And so it was in everything that I did. But again, the silence, you don't talk about that. You just do your best to look the part, to play the role on the outside. And again, my role was never about what I wanted. It was about what society thought of me. And so, truth be told, what society thought about Native Americans growing up was one that was painted very negatively. That was my belief system. And that's what went on in the silence. But not only that, was this like desperation and this constant grief. Like I was always like crying and not actually like visibly crying. Sometimes I would cry though. Oh my God. I hated it because, you know, as natural and as healing as crying is, and that's one of our 4 main medicines is crying now. I believe that. So things have changed. I've been lucky enough, and by some way, shape, or form, I'm still on this planet, in this body, still alive. Only because my attitude towards silence has changed. Not that I'm any smarter than anybody, not that I'm any more blessed, and that's a part of the great mystery. I don't know. But I remember, my gosh, I remember squared up, ready to battle, because I was, you know, I was being assaulted by you're bad for being Native. It's wrong. We don't like you the way that you are, and even today that exists. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, relatives. If you don't know, you don't know. That's not a part of your experience, but it is a part of mine, and that's on the daily. Today even. Back then it was worse. Back then it was acceptable. Now it's only kind of, you know, that was a layer, and now there's more layers too. And so I remember I was getting ready to do battle out on the schoolyard. Again, another day of doing battle. I never knew when I was going to have to go into battle. I never knew who it was I was going to have to battle with or protect myself with. And I remember, man, I was so fed up. I was so overwhelmed and so tired of having to do that. I was ready to get into a fight. We were squared up. Everybody was around us. We were the center of attention. I don't know where the teachers were at, but you know how it is. You know, everybody wants to see a fight. And I remember I was ready to do some damage because you could hurt me, but I had been hurt so much that if you tapped into that, you were in trouble. You were going to get hurt. And so we were squaring up, and I remember tears were coming down my face. And I remember feeling betrayed by that silence that I carried around. I remember thinking, why in the heck am I about to cry? Why are these tears coming down my face? Of all times, I'm getting ready to do battle. Everybody see me. I need to be tough right now. I need to defend myself, because that's all I was doing, relatives. I was defending myself. I wasn't trying to go out and look for fights, but there was always, a highway patrolman is looks like he's going to pull somebody over. So he just kind of come out and hit his lights, and now he's speeding up. So he was running radar, now he's going to go catch somebody. So I just had to slow down for that. So now I'm going to fast forward, and those were the rules that I would live by for a long time. And eventually I would have to make a life and death kind of fueled, like a quality of life fueled, a self-assessment of myself. Oh, my thing is coming apart. I may have to end this video a little bit early, right smack into the meat and potatoes of it, but I'm going to do my best, so maybe I won't have to, okay? The way that guy's going, I'm thinking he's going to back somebody up. I have that. So in other words, they got somebody pulled over somewhere else. I would only speculate that, because I know that they run radar around this area quite a bit. So fast forwarded to it, I've come a long way with my relationship with silence. I would eventually have to confront my own self and the person that I became, because I became my own worst enemy. I was always fighting when I didn't have to fight, because I would always think that I needed to fight. And granted, there's still a lot of that going on today, and there's a lot of growth that needs to happen within society when it comes to being Native American. So that is ongoing growth, relatives. Today, it's different, because now I do value silence. Now today, I understand the damage that happened a long time ago. I've taken my own account, my own responsibility, I've taken control of my own life. And I've been able to make over the years, relatives, this just didn't happen overnight, to take an honest self-reflection, self-assessment, evaluation. Oops. I told you, man. Of my life. Alright, I'm going to do my best. Alright, this should be okay. And because of that, I believe is what saved my life, what kept me alive. I think it kept me alive. I think it saved my life. And I'm positive. Listen, I'm going to say, I ain't no thinking about this. I know that this is true. It saved my life. But that was just the beginning. And so I needed to go places and be amongst people where I could start to talk, where I could start to give voice to that silence. And so I started to. And that's what happened, and that's what continued to happen, and that's what's happening now. That's a part of the conversation. That is a part of the rules that I implement in my own life. I stand by those rules because I know that they save lives. That things always need to change. There's always a time for honest self-assessment within that silence. And guess what? Now they've talked about the Creator, right? They talked about God. I had a real problem with that, because the messages back then even were, God is a punishing God. And since people don't like me for being who I was, God sure as heck don't like me for being who I was. So any sort of God had been out of the equation for a very long time. In fact, it was just like this. You put two fingers up, and that's what I think about you, God, Creator, creation. I got my own, all right, relatives? I got my own experience with what spirit is. Today, I'm not going to go into that. So I use the term God with a lot of flexibility, okay? But I'm only making it into a word just for the sake of the video, okay? And so now when that silence comes, I bring creation into it. I bring God consciousness into it. I bring that into it. Because when I'm assaulted, when I'm barraged with those messages about who I am expected to be, whether they are habituated through my own thinking from long ago or habituated from that old school that still is very alive in today's societal standards. There's still a standard that says we want you to look the way that we want you to. And this can apply to anybody, no matter what skin color you are. You may feel trapped in and boxed in and limited and stunted and deceived, fooled, manipulated, held down, victimized, held back by a communal standard, by a familial standard, a set of rules and values, and even by a national standard. Okay, so that can apply to anybody. And so when I go into the silence, I know this now. I now know what I didn't know before. And so now I know this is something that has been exposed, that I know comes from long ago, that is still residue left over. And I'm not going to dehumanize myself by denying that. That is according to the societal standards. That's that self-harm cycle perpetuating, wanting to hold the standard, wanting to resist change, wanting things to stay the same, wanting me to stay within my comfort zone. And I don't have that no more. I don't play like that no more, relatives. I do not deny myself that opportunity for change. That, to me, is life saying, you got some growing to do, you got some changing to do, and since you have been doing that, we're going to go ahead and work with you. Because we're going to go ahead and send you out now to be of value to other people who need community, who need a new set of rules to be able to make that self-assessment on the value systems that they hold. And so myself, now silence is different. It can still be the same way because I like I said, I live alone. I'm single, you know what I mean? I love my life. I enjoy my life, but I get lonely. You know what I'm saying? That's just the way that it is. I mean, I know people who have, 8 kids, or, I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound that bad, but, 5 kids, a wife, and, a job with the many people around that feel lonely too. But we use that type of language in such a way as to escape. There is something of value within that loneliness, and that's the growth system of that silence. That to me is an indicator. People call them red lights. I don't like to use standards because when they said red light, it means something negative. So you choose whatever light you want it to be. Pick your own color and make it about something. It may feel negative, yes, that we cannot escape that. But that can be the motivator for change. That can also be the time where you bring your creator or your relationship, the people that you trust, into that conversation. So now there is that kinship system that was outlawed for all those years, that I was afraid of for all those years, into that view, into that perspective, into that decision making, into that self-assessment, into that evaluation that we make as individuals, as families, as communities, as a nation. And obviously we're going to disagree, and those disagreements are pretty heavy duty nowadays. I never did see that where that highway patrolman went, but there's another highway patrolman here. So if you're doing in South Dakota, it's a clear day. They're running radar, pretty heavy duty. They're on a mission. It almost looks like this guy's going to be coming our way, because I was going over the speed limit, but I was going over the speed limit within that 5 mile an hour. I think I was going like 84 within 80. I don't know, maybe he saw me blabbering away and thought this guy's needs some sort of intervention. So relatives, I do believe in that reading. I love the silence. I do believe that there's spirit within that silence. And sometimes that silence can feel really negative because we know that change needs to happen. And sometimes our environment that we're living in is not going to be conducive to that change. So that silence is going to bring up something that we don't really want to take a look at. But again, if you think about it, it just keeps coming, firing away. Creation, creator, God, that soul part of us. Because if it wasn't there, it wouldn't be there, right? If it wasn't there, it wouldn't come up. It is just like the laws of nature. It is going to expose something, a part of us, that needs to be worked on. And so in that silence, that's why a lot of people are afraid of silence. They need to fill the space with noise. They need to avoid that honest self-assessment. They need to avoid that uncomfortability of silence. And so that is pretty much continuing to be the value system of mainstream society. But if you might have to find a place within yourself, a place definitely out on the land. I highly recommend that, because the land abides by, and benefits is in that cycle, a healthy cycle of change, in that healthy cycle of self-assessment, in that healthy cycle of spirit. The land follows those laws. Man does not, because man has made fear. Man operates by fear. Let's just put it that way, okay? Man doesn't operate by honest self-assessment. So just understand, within that silence, you're going to feel like you're swimming against the current. This is good. See, we've been socialized to believe that this is negative. And yes, it feels negative only because we've been brainwashed to view feeling uncomfortable as negative. But for myself, I've said that whole self-assessment has been pulling up everything by the root system, taking a look at the roots, doing that hard work, and now looking at what comes to the surface during that silence as both good and bad. And when we do that, we are operating within the laws of God consciousness of creation. And creation is set up in such a way that it is unable to deny when we ask for help. And in the sense of language, it understands nonverbal language. And that's why the same thing keeps coming up, because language we limit to as sound. Creation knows what we need help with. We actually know what we need help with. Maybe not to the very, like it'll work with us in such a way, it'll say, you need help with this. And then when we say, yes, you're right, and we acknowledge that, and we are willing to be uncomfortable, now creation, through a set of principles, will start to show us the more detailed ways of how we're going to receive help and what that is going to look like. Those are the benefits that come from silence for me. And now I can have a honest self-appraisal of who I actually am. Now I have defense against that which is assaultive to my self-esteem, my self-assessment. Now I know that when I'm under assault, whether it be by habituating of my own voice, or whether it be by societal's fear-based standards. And so now I know that now, which prior to that I didn't know. And now I know its damage that it does. I also know how I can acclimate to that and fit in, and the benefits of that. And so now I'm able to make a more informed decision making when it comes to that point when I need to do that. So silence absolutely needs to be a part of that. But sometimes we need a new strategy, a new way of what silence means to us. Again, I told you my evolvement. I told you my journey with silence. Now silence has taken on a whole new perspective. And a lot of people are suffering with that as we speak. As we speak. And so I guess maybe the purpose of this video is for that. I would think so, obviously, very obviously. So I think I'll just go ahead and end with that, relatives. Again, I will invite you to like and share, whether you're on Facebook or whether you're on YouTube. I'm just a dude, man. I'm just a guy. I'm a spirit. You know, I'm not going to minimize things. I'm a guy out here trying to create change. Just like you, I'm a person out here making changes, trying to live within spirit, and still trying to live within, knowing that well, I guess I can't find the words. I'm kind of preoccupied because my journey, my road trip this aspect is about to end. So I'm kind of focusing on that. And I do need to slow down. Oh my gosh. And traffic has kind of picked up too, so if you'd like to, feel free to comment, relatives. Feel free to take this video however you like. As they say, take what you want, leave the rest behind. Just want to invite you to continue to watch, to reach out to me if you need somebody to talk to or to bounce things off of, or if there's a certain subject or a reading or a quote that you would like for me to sort of take a look at and talk about what I think about that. It's up to you. But please feel free to like and share from Facebook, YouTube. And I will talk to you again soon. All right? You have a blessed day. You have a good day, relatives.